Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. So I'm excited today. I've been meeting some amazing people lately that are extremely helpful and full of great knowledge. So we're going to have a talk called Spirituality of Wealth today with my special guest, Christina Suter. So here she comes. Hey, Christina. Welcome.
Hi, Glenn. Thank you for having me on the show. Super excited to be invited. I cannot tell you, I feel like I'm practically quivering with our topic. Like, seriously. I'm like, okay, this is so good. This is so good.
Yeah, we spoke for a couple minutes before we started recording, and we're like, oh my God, this is just so good. Like, we have to start recording. Right. So tell the people a little bit about yourself so they can get to know you.
Sure. So usually I talk about real estate, and I started investing in real estate at 17, and I started investing in stocks at 12. So I have this like long financial background, right? Which is money. But actually I was dyslexic and ADHD. I had a very angry and very big mother, and it's transgenerational that abuse runs through our family. Let me turn that off because that's just going to get loud. So in my 20s, I was a pretty unhappy camper. And I literally had these moments in my 20s of really just trying to kind of go, why am I even here? Why am I on this planet? Why am I like, get me off, get me out of here, right? Like that. And I remember the moment when I chose, like literally I was buying ice cream, and I'm like, oh, I want this ice cream flavor and that ice cream flavor. I was in the grocery store, in the aisle, in front of the freezer, low freezer. I'm like, I want this ice cream and I want that ice cream. And I remember the voice, and I went, but I can't have both. I mean, that would be ridiculous. And the voice in the back of my head said, well, you could buy one tomorrow. And I literally went, you mean I'm going to be here tomorrow? Like, that's how it felt for me, not being connected to the planet. And I started to realize that I did want to be here. Like, I really, really like wrapped the whole thing around the other direction and claimed, like, I want to be on this planet. I mean, this is where lessons happen. This is where life happens. This is where laughter happens. Yes, the name of your show, that's intentional, because it really taught me that I wanted to learn to play. So later in my life, I'm standing at the top of a D ski slope, and I'm with one of my, I took a lot of personal growth workshops. I started doing therapy in my teens, and I started doing personal growth at 25 after leaving a series of kind of tough relationships. And I realized I was the central problem. I was the one that needed to make the change. I was the one that was central to life on this planet being valuable. So I was standing at the top of this ski slope. I'd be like, oh my God, you mean it's not everything happening to me? Oh my God, like maybe I can make a difference in this world. So I'm at the top of this ski slope, and I'm looking at the guy who runs the personal growth workshops. His name was Raz. And he was standing there. He has 1.5 arms. And it was always a powerful story to watch him go, no, there's no excuses. Excuse me, you're going to give me a hard time? Like, there's no excuses. I have 1.5 arms. Come on. Right. So he's standing at the top of the slope, and I'm looking at him, and he's literally vibrating with excitement. And I'm like, how the hell do you do that? How do you vibrate with excitement? Right. I'm like, ah. And so I'm watching him, and I'm like, and I'm like, how can you do that? And he's like, because it's going to be fun, and we're going to have a good time, and we're going to challenge ourselves. And I went, he likes challenging himself. And I went, you know what? Maybe I could do that. Maybe I could challenge myself. Like it was just, and it was again, another awakening of like, wow, you mean I don't have to be terrified of being challenged. Like, I could vibrate in excitement about being challenged. And that was new for me, to say the least. So that was kind of my personal growth track. So I've done regression therapy, past life therapy, brain spotting. I have a master's in spiritual psychology from the University of Santa Monica. I have a bachelor's in business. So I really have done my personal growth work almost nonstop since I was 25, and I'm now 56. So I may not look 56, but trust me, baby, I'm 56.
Hey, me too.
There you go. See?
Yeah, same page.
Somewhere along the way, I wanted to get to normal. This is the last part of my story. I wanted to go from upset, not wanting to be on the planet. I just wished to be like Mother Teresa. Now, let me be clear. It wasn't I wanted to do the work she did. I wanted to have that clarity of purpose. She was so clear. This is what I do. This is who I am. This is what I contribute on the planet. I just wanted that clarity of purpose of Mother Teresa. So I'm not Mother Teresa. Let's get really clear. But but I was passionate about that clarity of purpose. And so as I got to normal, quote unquote normal, wanting to be on the planet, wanting to engage, wanting to have a job, wanting to be participating, I got to normal. I realized I kind of went past it a little bit, because I not only realized normal wasn't necessarily clear, I somehow had gotten to clearer. Like, it's really okay to love on the planet and to learn how to grieve. Because the deeper you can learn to grieve, the deeper you can learn to love. It's really okay to learn to mourn the challenges or face the challenges and be wrong, and then really re-engage. This planet isn't about being right or wrong. A lot of people might believe that it is, and it's set up to feel that way. It's really, 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 really set up to feel right and wrong, right? But it's not. There's so many choices.
Well, absolutely.
Some of them are not going to help you, and you are the locus of control. You choose.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And it's, I'm resonating with a lot of what you're saying, because it's, I think that there are many paths, and obviously ours are different because we're different people, but when you look underneath, it's the same thing, it's that coming to the understanding of, that we have control over our lives. And it's not about being right or wrong. I think that that's a big piece of I think to fully live, we have to work through the fear, because that fear holds us back. So once we make peace with that fear, and we're like, okay, I know it's going to be there, but I can go through it anyway, and things like that, and we're not scared of being wrong or failing or something like that, then all of a sudden that gives us the freedom to actually live. It's like when I moved over to the Dominican Republic, and I was like, okay, should I get a motorcycle or a car? And I was like, well, I've never driven a motorcycle. Everybody drives them over here, but like I've never. So I had some fear around it. And I was like, okay, well, I can't really make a clear decision with this fear. So I was like, I'm going to go learn how to ride a motorcycle. So I went and learned how to ride a motorcycle. And then I didn't have the fear. Then I was like, okay, now what do I want? Do I want a car or a moto? And I'm like, oh, the moto's less expensive. It's easier to park. It's fine. So I did that, and I got the moto. Then I moved to the mountains, and I'm like, now I'm scared to drive the moto up the mountain. Can I make it? It's a dirt road. It's rocky. I don't know. So what do? I go up the mountain a few times. And one time I went over on the bike and had to pick it back up and try again, and made it. And then I was like, okay, I worked through the fear. I can live in the mountains and have a moto. Do I want to? Does it make sense?
That's right. Right.
I was like, well, no, not really, because I have a dog that's too big to fit on the bike. Groceries, I have to watch out for rain. Like, it's going to be much easier to get a vehicle if I live in the mountains. Oh, okay, I'll get the vehicle. But my point is I worked through the fear before I allowed myself to make the choice, because if I didn't, that fear was going to shade my decision making, whether I wanted it to or not. Yeah. And that's kind of what I heard you talking about, working when you understand that there's not a right way and a wrong way. It's just about following our heart and experiencing and living our lives to the best of our ability. And there is no right or wrong. Then that removes the fear, and then you can make wise choices that suit your situation and your life, instead of decisions based out of fear. I'm
trying so hard to be quiet. You have no idea how much how much control this is taking from me.
Like,
I'm like, yes. Because I boil that down to informed choices, right?
yes.
Informed choices. So people are like, well, should I do this or should I do that? I'm like, are you informed? Like we are this amazing sensing machine, right? We can sense all kinds of things, physical and unphysical. Are you informed? Have you taken the moment to remove the fear, to move into discernment versus judgment? One of my favorite conversations, discernment versus judgment, and get yourself informed. And I can't tell you how many times I tell my contractors, real estate, how many times I tell my contractors or I tell my project managers, do we have the information? Can you get this information? I want to make an informed decision. Can we get this information? And it's just like really practical, everyday implementations of moving fear, lack of information out of the way and stepping into, I can discern an answer, which has nothing to do with fear. So can I talk a little longer about this?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll keep it short. So in my personal growth workshops, which was Insight, they talked about you standing on the train. Remember Raz, the guy at the top of the hill with 1.5 arms? Okay. He led those workshops and they still run today. Insight Seminar still runs today. But he would talk about, and as part of the seminar, is you're standing here and you're standing on some railroad tracks and you see this train coming at you down the pike. Right there it is. You can see the headlight coming right at you. And you stand on the tracks and you go, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Ah! And you stand there and you can be in like freak out about it. Or you can simply go, oh, let me move over. Right? Like you have a choice. Right? You have a choice. If there's a train coming at you, you do not need to stand on the train tracks. You do not need to have a judgment. You do not need to have shame. You do not need to have fear. You actually don't need any of those emotions to make a discernment that, let me move my backside. Right? And that's the background behind the informed choice and discernment versus judgment. Judgment actually doesn't get us anything. Like literally, it physically... what it gets us physically actually is a lot of cortisol and adrenaline. That's what it gets us physically. But the cortisol and adrenaline is not actually needed in order to make the decision. The decision and the reaction are two different things, right? So you can say, I need to get off this track, and you can use the adrenaline if you want to run. You can also just walk. But most of the time, judgment, fear, shame, all of those things, I call it like, when you park your car and they put a boot lock on your wheel. Yeah. It's kind of like trying to drive away with one of those on you. Like it's like so not required. The decision is the PowerPoint. That is where you make the change. That is where clarity resides. And that's actually where you get the fastest result in order to respond to a situation is from the place of discernment. I don't like this. I'm going to leave. I don't like this. I'm going to ask you to stop. I love this. I'm going to hang longer, right? Like it is quicker, more efficient. And I would even suggest more loving and more aligned, since we're on a spiritual show. I would say it's actually much more aligned with God, much more aligned with the inner voice.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. This is all stuff that I teach myself. It's there's two ways to do something. Oh my God, I have to be somewhere. And you run out the door and you forget your keys. And then it's like, oh crap, I got to go back and get the keys. And then you drop them on the way. And it just takes everything much longer and you're less efficient. Emotions are wonderful aspects of our life, but they are not good decision makers.
No, they're not.
They're horrible decision makers. And so is fear. It actually shuts down our brain and our blood starts getting pushed to the major muscle groups for fight or flight. So we actually are incapable of thinking very well when we're in fear. So, one of the parts that I loved, I loved all of it, but I loved how you talked about gathering the information. Like that's what I call, I call it gathering information. And it seems like the ego, most of us are kind of going through our days unconsciously through conditioned behaviors that we're not really aware of. And that's where all the mistakes are coming from, And the ego wants the conclusion. If there's a question, the ego wants to answer it. So it's like, what's the answer? And it's most people skip over the gathering information stage.
Yeah.
It's like, just don't worry about what the answer is yet. just gather the information. If we just make that a conscious part of what we're doing, okay, I'm looking into something. So first I have to gather the information. And, you know, then maybe at some point I'll make the decision, but I'm not making the decision now. I'm gathering information, you know, and really immerse yourself in that. Then a lot of times, once you gather the information, the obvious choice is right there. You know, a lot of times if we're, let's say one more little thing. I tell people, if we're confused, that means we don't have enough information. So why do we keep trying to make we keep trying, I don't know what to do. I have to make this, you know, I have to come to this conclusion. I have to make this decision, but I don't know what to do. Well, then you don't have enough information. You know, it's that simple. Go back and gather more information, you know.
Being a spiritually minded show, reason why, again, I'm like vibrating over here, is because my University of Santa Monica, right? So that was where I got my master's in spiritual psychology from. And they have a statement on their wall saying, spirit meets you at the point of action. And I like that statement a lot. Spirit meets you at the point of action. So it's like, if you hide in your room, you can get spiritual information from your room, but how can spirit move you through the world if you don't choose action? Right. And when you're choosing to get educated and you're choosing to gather this information, it is also a form of action in the world. Spirit meets you at the point of action. So not only do you get physical world information, but you also have the opportunity to get a lot more spiritual information. Because you're actually engaging in the question physically and spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. You're engaging in the question on all four levels, and you're allowing for more information to come to you. You don't have to be erratic about it. You can stay spiritually centered, grounded, and available for the information. How many times, and this is when coincidences happen, right? How many times do you say, oh, I'm going to leave my house, I'm going to find out more information about blank. And then you run into blank a week, you know, whether it's a week later, or a day later, or an hour later. And you go, oh, there's the information I was missing. What seemed impossible just became possible, or what seemed possible just became impossible. And again, I don't want to be attached to the positive, right? This is a positive, negative planet, but that's not necessarily how we have to participate, right? The feedback, this is not a good idea, is just as good feedback as this is a good idea, just as valuable when you're trying to stay in the slipstream, because that's how it feels to me, of following spirit, God, grace, Buddha, pick your word. I don't care. They're all the same God to me. I apologize for anybody I just pissed off. But to me, it's all that slipstream that people in Bibles and, you know, the Quran and has been pointing to for thousands of years, even the Egyptians, thousands of years. This is not new information. Being in communication with a higher wisdom is not new information.
No. And it's, you know, it's funny that you went there, because that's when you said that statement about action and spirituality. It's like what I started seeing was like, I studied a bunch of all the major religions I've looked into to some degree, you know, and what I found interesting was that if you dive deep enough into them, they all believe in one God, and they all have a trilogy underneath that one God.
They have a structure underneath. Yeah.
So that trilogy underneath basically symbolizes creation, destruction, and action.
Yeah,
so
creation, destruction, action.
You know, those are the three aspects that are right underneath the one God in all major religions. So they all represent that. And what we're talking about, in my opinion, is, you know, what in like Christianity is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Well, the Father is creation. The Son is destruction because of the death. Okay. And then the Holy Spirit is the action.
It's the action. Right? The thing that moves you through. Yes.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
So this is how we live spirituality. It's not, and I think that this is where we are. I'm working with clients this week, so I pick up on patterns. This week's pattern is really bringing the idea of spirituality into a tangible, down-to-earth, realistic way of living, not just some floaty, you know, oh, love is everything, and then go back to your business. Like, it's no bringing it into that. And how do we do that? We do it through our action, because that's when we're working with the spirit That's how spirit comes into this world, is through that action. Spiritual, it's all the same thing. So yeah, this is, it's just aligning with the way that I see things as well.
I feel like we're sitting on top of our topic in my mind, which is how physical is a representation, right? And money, right? So I deal a lot with money, and in real estate with my clients. So I'm a real estate investment advisor. I'm also a registered investment advisor, which means I literally deal with money, and I deal with real estate, and I deal with clients. That's the master's in psychology. And I also do joint ventures, which means I also actually invest in real estate personally in my own portfolio. And I do joint ventures with my past clients investing in real estate together. So I deal with finances and money like a lot of the day, either psychology or finance all day long. That's pretty much my life. And even with my daughter, there's, psychology, right? Helping her, standing by her as she learns to fulfill her purpose, whatever her purpose is, as she discovers it and then walks the path to fulfill it, because that's her job. And my job is to just like walk next door, right? Her job is to discover it and fulfill it. Money. So I think there are a couple topics there, but one is money is a tool. And it's not just a tool like, oh yeah, I'm physical. It's a tool. Here, let me learn to use that. Like I learned to use a book, or I learned to use a hammer. Money is a tool, right? It's a tool put on the planet, right? I'm going to suggest that it's actually above and beyond that it's actually a spiritual representation. I'm going to suggest that, right? We know money's not evil anymore. Like we were talking about at the beginning, probably 50% of us or more of us know that money isn't evil. The love of money is what is evil, because then it forces you away from the focus of the love of self, or the God representation of self, or the love of God. Pick your wording based on your religion. I don't care, right? But it takes you away from that focus into something external, right? You could love money. You could love drugs, you could love sex, you could love your neighbor more than you're supposed to, right? There's all these like you can love. The point is that it's an actual tool. And what I mean by that is, in my experience of working with money, with people, with their budgets, with their values, with their systems, with their priorities, because I also do personal finance in and among my clients, money is a representation of your unconscious and conscious choices. Just as you bumping into somebody and how you speak to them is a representation of your conscious and unconscious choices, your conscious and unconscious values. Where you apply your money is a representation. What do you spend money on first? So I love using these two clients as an example. One client who's right after her rent, Lily, right after her rent, I think maybe right before or after her car was her polo ponies. Period. They're like family for her. They were not going to go without. They were not going to suffer. They were not going to be hurt. It was her horses. Period. Right? Whereas for somebody else who had very little money, as for somebody else who had very little money, it was her health of food, her natural, right? Best ingredients, best food that she could get, period. Right? Her groceries and the quality of her groceries were absolute tantamount to her right after her rent. Right? And I have another woman who's actually, her supplements were before her rent. Like she would literally buy her supplements for her mental soundness before she would bother to pay what her rent was. So when you see people choose different values, everybody goes, oh, of course you pay your rent first, you pay your cell phone first. No, actually, no, you don't. No, actually, everybody has their set amount of what they spend their money on first. So money becomes a representation of what it is that you value on the planet. And when you stop to look at where you spend your money, then you actually start to reveal what you're expressing. What are you expressing through money about yourself, about your beliefs on the planet, and about how you want to be on the planet?
Yes.
Right? So therefore, from my point of view, it's much like time, birth, death. We have a limited amount of time. We learn to use our time. Money is the same thing. It is an expression of how we perceive ourselves, our value, our worth, our job on the planet, and what it is, whether we're fulfilling it or not. Money is a tool to get there and an expression of it. And so therefore, I believe it's in existence because, just as time is in existence, because it's us learning to use this realm to express our higher wisdom, our higher God, and our higher good. So money to me is an expression of your spirituality. Not just, am I doing good? It's what I choose.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Everything is energy, right?
Everything's energy, right?
Whether we're talking about time, our attention, how we spend our money, it all is a reflection of what's going on inside of us and what we are prioritizing in our lives. And how do we make our, sometimes I use that word prioritization, and some people are like, well, like you were saying, well, of course I have to prioritize rent. It's like, well, wait, not necessarily. Like, like not necessarily. I mean, I understand the obvious mentality of some people who do, and why rent is either at the top or near the top. I understand the reasoning behind that. But it shouldn't be a foregone conclusion. We have to, think a little bit deeper and go, does it have to be? What's the most important thing in my life? And use our energy in the order of our priorities.
Priorities, right?
And
our choice.
Lots of I tell people, like, if they're working on their spirituality, they're like, I've been working on this self-help and I'm just not getting it. I'm just not getting over that hump. I'm not really happy. I'm not really contented. It's like, okay, well, how's your meditation going? Oh, well, I try to meditate whenever I can. Oh, what routines do you do? What do you do consistently? Well, or if you ask most people, you say, what would you like out of life? I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. Oh, okay. So what have you done in the last 2 weeks to become more happy? Like, what do you mean?
What do you mean? You mean I have
control? You don't even understand the question. It's like, so you want to be happy, but you haven't put any energy towards being happy. How did you think it was going to come? Like, so, that's why I like, I call it simplifying, but just simplifying it, looking at it in the way of energy, and you can see how it works. If you put energy towards something, it's going to expand.
Okay.
So if you want something in your life, feed it energy. If you don't want something in your life, starve it. And most people, that are struggling with finances are starving their energy that they put towards it. That they go to work, but they hate going to work. And they're not doing anything outside of work to change their circumstance. So they're not feeding the solution any energy. So it's,
No, it's perfect. Because two things come from that. One is similar conversations. Glenn, you and I are so alike. Maybe it's just the amount of work we've done that we landed in this place because maybe this place kind of is this place and it takes the work to get there, but we're there.
Absolutely.
But I think the pieces I talk about, money is a relationship, right? One of the tentaments of money is that money is a relationship. And if you resent your relationship with money, categorically, you resent it. I don't want to deal with money. I don't want to make money. I don't want to be involved with money. Money, you could call it bad, evil, all the way to, no, I just resent that I have to use money, to I resent I have to work for money, to if I resent the concept of money as a thing that exists on the planet, I have to engage with it, all the way to I just don't like money. You're going to have a very bad marriage with that thing. I'm just saying, usually if you don't like your partner, you don't usually have a good, loving relationship with them, right? Exactly. So how can you get into a loving relationship with money? This is much like a loving relationship with self, right? How do I be happy? Right? The first thing you got to be willing to do is be in relationship with it. Do I track it? Do I think about it? Do I feed it energy? Right? Do I engage with it? Do I try to get myself neutral about it? Do I do my inner work so that I get rid of my judgments against it? Right? Because to me, there's meditation, I am statements, centering in yourself, grounding work, all of that work we do to bring the mind to a space of neutrality instead of a space of judgment, upset, and pain, right? The ego, right? But then there's also the inner work, which is, gee, when I was so-and-so years old, right? Regression therapy, right? Personal growth workshops, where you start to go, ooh, wow, that memory really hurts, and I'm avoiding it, right? Like one of my current theories, and it comes from probably Joe Dispenza, and so Joe Dispenza probably believes this, but I'm now becoming really aware of it, is we learn from the amygdala to stay away from fire. We learn to stay away from things that are painful. We learn to stay away from things that hurt us. And I think what we haven't understood, or psychology is starting to catch up with, is belonging to your family is just as much a survival skill as staying away from fire is.
Right.
And the same cortisol, the same subconscious, the same memories, the same implementation in the neurocortex occurs when you feel shamed, embarrassment, loss, fear of being abandoned in your family as you do when you put your hand to fire and go, oh no, I'm never going to do that again. And it's the exact same programming.
And in society as well, not just your family.
And in society as well.
We're hardwired to fit in.
We're hardwired to fit in.
So when we're trying to fit in,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden we get smacked on the hand and we go, no, you don't fit in because like that's actually what happened to me. Like growing up, I grew up in a blue collar town in Massachusetts, and we had a pool put in the backyard in 4th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I became the rich kid in the neighborhood. So I went out, as soon as I went out of the house, the neighborhood kids were like, oh, there's the rich kid,
Mm-hmm.
So I hit them because they meant it as an insult, and I took it as one. Everybody, everybody in our, not only our neighborhood, but most people in our town, the belief system was that rich people were greedy and selfish and stepped on other people and didn't care about people and all this stuff. So that was what I learned about money. That's how I associated it. I'm just a kid kids are wonderful figuring out dynamics. We lock our belief systems in place. And this is my version of what you were just talking about. Yep. We lock our belief systems in place between the ages of 0 and 7 or 4 and 8, depending on who you ask.
Right.
And it's us trying to make sense of the world. So I was, a little kid trying to make sense of the world. And I heard all these, this person's selfish, this person's greedy, and they're the rich ones, and they live over here, and all this stuff. And then you're rich, you think you're better than everybody, bang. And I'm taking in all this information. So the conclusion I come to is money is bad and people who have it are selfish. So now I had to spend many years making sure that I didn't have money. A couple of times I came to a big chunk of money. Yeah. And my father taught me to be very good with money intellectually, but my belief system was deeper. Yes. So I would be like, I would do all the right things with the money, and then I would manifest a situation in my life where I could self-sabotage and eat away at that money until it was gone.
Yeah.
And override my intellectual understanding of, hey, I should have this. I was like, no, because it wasn't in alignment with my moral values.
Right.
I wanted to be a good person. Everybody does. And so to choose something that represented being a bad person didn't align with me, so I had to do a lot of that inner work to get through that.
Yeah. Not just the meditation, not just the I ams, not just mirror work, but the actual, no, I'm going to go back to that memory, and I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to look at that, and then I'm going to forgive myself, and I'm going to re-anchor the truth of that moment wasn't that I wasn't loved. The truth of that moment is they were jealous of, I had a pool and they didn't. The truth of that moment is they were reenacting their parents' belief systems and not even necessarily their own. Right? The truth of that moment was very different than what we locked into our subconscious. And because we double back to the previous topic, which is how do you find happiness? My statement around that is if you want a life of meaning, you have to add meaning, which means you have to be willing to add meaning to the situations that you're in. And that is a vulnerable position in relationship to our histories and our fears. You mean I actually have to realize that I love this person in front of me? I have to realize how vulnerable it is if they reject me. I have to realize how excited I am about this possible idea and that it might fail. Right? I have to be willing to bring meaning to my life if I'm looking for meaning. And the problem is that ego doesn't create meaning. Ego creates fear and judgment.
Yes.
What creates meaning, what creates a sense of satisfaction and joy and love and being centered in your life and going, oh, I succeeded. Oh, it feels so satisfying, not joyful, not excited, satisfying. Or I just lost that. Oh, wow, that hurts my heart. Right? To be able to experience life from a depth of meaning and therefore have meaning in life, which makes it worth living. Remember, I didn't want to be on the planet. And so this is a topic of mine that I've learned to be with, right? Is being able to apply meaning, being willing to get meaning is also means you have to undo some of these things. And sometimes we avoid undoing them because, again, we don't want the meaning. We don't want the vulnerability of what it means to be in that space. So if you want joy, you need to be willing to have happiness. And if you want to have joy, you want to be willing to have sadness. And if you want happiness, you want to be able to have fear. Like there are all of these things of being willing to participate, willing to show up, willing to play without it destroying who you think you are because you can't stand in the hurt. So then you have to clear the hurt. You have to face the hurt. Then you can add meaning.
Yes, I like the way you phrase that was slightly different than the way that I phrase it, which I really enjoyed because
it's very generous of you.
Yeah, it expands the way, it deepens the meaning when I see it in multiple ways. And it's like, I think, what holds people back from doing that is, of course, fear of feeling that pain and stuff. And I agree with you that there's an aspect that like we have to be, we can't be scared to feel that pain. Right. So understanding that we're going to feel some sort of emotions, sadness or hurt or something like that. And that's okay. Like, I think part of that is making the amount of sadness or pain that we feel a manageable amount where I don't know that. And the way to do that, in my opinion, is non-attachment to an outcome.
Right. That's right. You can set it up from the beginning. Your expectations, set up your reactions. You actually set it up from the beginning. At the point of expectation is where you actually set up the upset. It's not necessarily in what they did or anything else. This is from Landmark Forum. So I just like to claim where I got these things from. So you set up the expectation from the beginning. I expect you to behave, or I expect this result, or I expect that this is what's going to happen. This is the only way that. So you set that up from the beginning.
Right.
Just go ahead, Glenn. You talk.
Yeah, no, and that was a perfect way to explain it. Like I'm loving this. I think we're enhancing we're just saying the same thing in multiple ways, which I think is helpful for people.
Exactly. It's very helpful for people.
Yeah. So it's like, it's setting those expectations. If you're sitting there and you're going, wait, I'm going to be realistic with myself. This may win or it may fail. And if it fails, I might experience a certain level of sadness or a certain level of pain, but it's going to be manageable. It's an amount that I can work through. It's not that big of a deal because one, I understand that we're here to experience different things and I shouldn't run just because I don't like the way something feels momentarily. It's not that big of a deal to experience sadness. We're all going to do it for the rest of our lives here and there. So we don't have to try to run from it or avoid it, but we can make it a manageable amount by how we approach things and the expectations we have. And if we have a non-attachment to an outcome, then the amount of letdown, like nowadays, I've been living like this for quite a while too. In certain ways, you've been living this way longer than I have. I was an alcoholic maniac for 20 years. So before I woke up. So, but almost 21 years ago is when I woke up. So now I've been living like this. And, honestly, very rarely do I experience sadness or hurt when something doesn't work out. Very rarely do I experience any. Do I sometimes? Yes, I still do, but I think it's appropriate when I do. I'm not trying to get away from the part, but most times when things don't work out, the majority, to me, I've just conditioned myself where it's like, oh yeah, well, okay, so something better must be coming. Or, a lot of times that's my initial reaction. So I don't actually really experience the sadness or the letdown, because I'm so locked into the unattachment to the outcome.
Right.
I'm not God, and I can't see the future and know what's supposed to happen and what's not supposed to happen. Maybe something failing was the best thing that could have happened to me. Thank God for unanswered prayers.
Exactly. And I think when you do the process of just being willing to go into the memories that hurt so much that you avoid them, and therefore you avoid the pain associated with them, and therefore you avoid situations in life associated with that potential pain, which would potentially, like when you start unraveling this chain of reactions you have, and you start putting into place the truth, that what I call it the truth is, that comes from USM. The truth is, you get a resilience that maybe you didn't know you could have. I remember when I was first studying meditation, and I had this trio group I belonged to, and one guy kept going, those spiritual teachers, they keep describing this stuff to us. I don't think they understand that we're over here and we don't understand what they're talking about. like, can they explain it? Well, we're still in our ego, right? Basically, it was a version of what he was saying, right? So I think that's why I try to, I guess I would break it down and go, when you're in ego, you're like, there's no way to not feel sad. There's no way to not judge self. There's no way to not shame self. This is what I know. This is who I've been. This is how it's been, right? Then it's like, well, how do I get past that? Well, Glenn says that you don't have, you have this amazing unattachment, right? Christina says, well, maybe you can be excited about the challenge. Well, that's all really nice idea, guys, but right? How do I get there? Right. And I'm like, well, it comes to the therapy. It comes from the inner work. It comes from the building. It's like, it's really big, heavy bicep curls, but building the bicep curls of saying, yes, I can face something sad. I can literally open it up, be in the sadness of it, have somebody help me with it. By the way, you don't have to do it alone. That's what regression therapy is. That's what, past life therapy is that you have somebody with you, EMDR, neuro-linguistic programming, tapping, brain spotting, right? Pick it. There's a lot of different forms where somebody's with you as an observer to help you open this stuff up so that you don't feel alone and meaningless, right? Or without safety. And then you work your way through it. And then after you do that for a while, you start to realize, wow, my perception of the world isn't actually accurate.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Like, I made all these things mean things. Right? Like my mom picking me up late from school, and when I was in preschool and just in life in general, I made it mean that my mom didn't love me. Well, my mom was a single mom raising 3 kids at that time. Mm-hmm. She was trying to get food on the table. She was trying to get shelter. My mom bust her butt to try to give us something that she had to earn. Right? And I made it mean she didn't love me. That wasn't actually the truth. The truth was she loved me a lot. She loved all of us a lot. She was angry. She was resentful. She was a beaten child, like literally physically beaten child. So what we saw was history of years of her being in pain. But her ethics, her value would make sure that we were protected and taken care of. She didn't put us on welfare. She didn't sit there and take all the money. Like there were all these things she didn't do. She made sure we were taken care of in that way, not by her, right? We got home to an empty house. We were latchkey kids. Right? Lots of times that she left us alone, but she was doing what she could do to actually love us without hitting us or abandoning us.
Well, there you go. That's some pretty powerful patterns that she was able to break.
Right. The hitting pattern alone. Like she did hit each of us about a half a dozen times, but the fact was only half a dozen times versus the regular abuse she received as a child. So you start to have a different story, and then you start to go, maybe I actually don't know reality. Maybe I actually don't. Maybe my judgments and my shame and my history are actually just not accurate or true.
Right.
And I can have a whole different relationship with it. So I'm really kind of pushing on how do I get to what Glenn and Christina are talking about? You do the inner work and the grounding work of the grounding, the meditation, the I am statements, the affirmations, the mirror work, the, whatever it is that your morning or afternoons or that we were talking about on the show are made of.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to just, like you said, do the work. It's like, this is often something that I see with working with people is, well, my clients are on a spiritual path, so they're a lot more
Advanced. Okay.
advanced and open to what I'm saying
Fine.
that I see in the general public. But a lot of people want to know, like, they want to figure out how it's going to work out in the long term. It's like, okay, like that day that I'm happy finally, like how is that going to work? Like, explain it to me so I understand it and I know that it's going to happen, and I'm sure about the process, and there's 100% accuracy of this is definitely going to work, and then maybe I'll try what you suggest.
Right.
And it's
right.
like, that's not how it works.
No, that's not how it works.
Because
you have to have faith first. You have to step forward first.
right,
you have to heal the relationship with money first. You have to heal you have to be willing. Right. Yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
Right. Because that's what changes your perception and your perspectives, is doing the work. Like they want to be where their perspectives have changed before they do the work to make sure that they should do the work. Yeah. It's like, no. That's what the work is the work does change your perspectives. It does change your perceptions. So the way you're looking at life now, it's not going to make sense. You're not going to be able to step into the future and automatically think like somebody who's done all the work. You just have to do the work, and then you'll think like the person who did the work. So we've talked about like everything beautiful. So like, let's say somebody is at the point where they've done the inner work, or they're doing the inner work, and they're at the cusp where they really want to start taking action to change their financial circumstances. What does that look like? Like, what actions can they take?
That's a great question. I was about to say that. Before we end, let me give you an exercise that I do a lot with my clients that I think is really important. And thank you for queuing that up. So, so remember I talked about budget, right? I talked about money, having a relationship with money. Your relationship with money is part of what being willing to have a positive relationship with money is the beginning of having actually more money, more financial freedom, more peace, and more of the world you want to live is having a positive relationship with money. How do you start there? Well, people have this concept that money is something that I don't have enough of. And so they have a budget versus what I call a spending plan. So here's what I suggest for people. Okay, I want you to write down on a piece of paper every line item by line item, everything you spend money on. I spend this much on my mortgage. I spend this much on my cell phone. I spend this much on eating. I spend this much on groceries. I spend line item by line item. If you need a sample budget, you go online, you type in sample budget, and it'll literally download a budget for you to fill in line item by line item. Okay, not a problem. Now, here's what's next. I want you to look at that once you've written it all out. You can even go so far as to do a 3-month average. You've written it all out. You're like, okay, if I had enough money, just enough money, only enough money, specifically just enough money to pay one thing, and only one thing, what is that absolute one thing I would choose? There's not two, there's not three, there's one thing and only one thing that I'm going to pay. What's that one thing I'm going to pay? And that's your first. And then you go, okay, all right, that's paid. Okay, great. Now I can only pay one more thing. I only have enough money to pay exactly one more thing. Only one more thing, just one. You have to pick one. Only one more thing. What is that next absolute thing I would pay? And you go all the way down the line. Now, I'm intentionally speaking this way because I'm actually talking to your unconscious. I'm talking to a piece in your brain. I'm getting this information from back here up to here. And you do that as a discipline all the way down. There are two things in there. One, you've now created a list of your priorities and values that have been speaking through money is now right in front of you because you've just used your unconscious to help you categorize, prioritize how money works for you. Period. That is an expression of what money means to you because you've just stated it. Two, in doing that list, there's going to be a point where you kind of go, well, these are my top 5 expenses. And all of a sudden there's a release. This one isn't as important. Like Christina's like, this one thing. And then it's like, well, okay, maybe this one's next. Maybe that one. Oh, maybe. And it starts turning into this feeling of choosing maybe choice. It starts to have less intensity to it.
Yeah.
And that's the stair step between your unconscious, your needs for survival, and your choice point. So everything that was above that line is the thing that your unconscious shelter needs you to do. Your lizard brain says, I must. Everything after that, which is only usually about 4 to 6 in, is things I have choice over. That is a complete expression of my values or my history or my unconscious or my conscious.
I love it.
If you want to start cutting, don't start cutting at 1. You start cutting at 50 and you work your way up from the bottom.
Right. Because that's your priority list.
Because that's your priority list. And I didn't tell you that. Right? I didn't define it for you. No book defined it for you. Nobody told you how you should do it. No financial advisor said this is, you said, you took your power inside of your own hands and you said, this is how I want to live.
Yes. And one thing that I always say when I'm talking about stuff like this is listen to what Christina said. She didn't say to do this in your head. I cannot count how many times I've had conversations similar to this where people and they're like, yeah, I did your little exercise, Glenn. It's not as exact as yours, Christina. I think yours is more advanced and better, but I've had many conversations about budgets and stuff like this and prioritizing and things. And I've told people to do it specifically and they go, yeah, did that. Okay. What is it? And they're like, let me think. I'm like, well, just look at your paper. And they're like, well, I didn't
write it down.
It's like, no, then you didn't do it. Like this, you cannot do exercises like this inside your brain. Like what we think our brain is capable of, like people don't use calendars. They're like, they're like, geez, I can't believe I forgot our appointment 6 months later. Like, I can't believe you thought you were going to remember. Like, So like be realistic about what your brain can do. And I don't care if you think your brain can do this exercise without paper or a Google spreadsheet or whatever you use. It can't. So actually do the exercise the way that she explained to do it. Physically take the action and write it down or, do it on a spreadsheet or something. But yeah, to me, that's an important thing to point out because like I said, I've seen it hiccup people many times.
Beautiful.
Well, that was amazing and wonderful. Did you have anything else that you wanted to mention before we go? No,
I am all good. I think I've offered some lessons and some thoughts on spirituality and discovered that you and I are cut of the same cloth. We often, as consultants and advisors to our people, we often go from bottom to top, spirituality all the way down to physical. And how do you get success across all of those?
Yes. Yeah.
How do you find love?
I feel like there's about 300 more conversations we need to have, but
we can have 300 more conversations because you're coming onto my show.
Yes. That's
right.
Awesome. Yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. So we already got a way to continue. So yeah, this has been great information. I love the everything about it because we talked about the big thoughts and the spiritual and the deep stuff where it starts, and we worked our way all the way back out to really tangible stuff that you can implement right now to start bettering your life. And that's exactly what I love to do for the listeners. So thank you very much, Christina. You're an amazing woman. And I'm I've been experiencing a lot of gratitude for meeting you and Bronson and some of the other people that I've been meeting lately. It's filling my heart because I know you guys are just, your hearts are in the right place, which is the first thing that I look for. And then after that, the expertise that you have through your spiritual connection for benefiting other people with financial advice and abundance information is just off the charts. So I feel grateful that I'm able to work with you guys. So thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody. And I'll talk with you in a moment, Christina. But thanks, everybody, for listening. And we will talk with you soon. Peace.